Okay, well, sorry to have to pause, but I don't know where to activate on the... Looks like the very first orange. Well, this is a shitty situation. You've gotta be fucking kidding me. Alright, I thought that run was dead immediately after the first solo act phrase. This song is another real shit show in terms of ticks. I didn't really understand the plight of this song for quite a while. I thought it was basically all up to that second act, which is a no whammy reverse tick act. But it actually more so comes down to the last act and how many you can hold on that, you know, on the back end, which is pretty strange. I mean, it reminds me of the One for the Road last act, I guess, Upper Bound, but yeah, there's not many acts like that in the game. So yeah, let's talk about the big elephant in the room here, the solo act double squeeze. I'm pretty sure it's possible. I've said this in a couple past videos, but I'm almost positive every nearly ideal act is at least, like, possible mechanically. Feasible, I guess, is a better word, and I do think it is feasible. I'm pretty sure I've come around 2 frames of it, but basically every run that I was shooting for it were runs that I fucked the second act because it's just really shitty to time. The tempo is just too fast to, like, keep track of tempo lines for that, which is what, you know, I normally do, and I'm sure most people normally do. And on that note, that's actually one of the biggest problems I have with this Xbox port. Basically everything else about the Xbox port I really like. The load times are super quick, you know, obviously you have the extra content and the improved textures, visuals overall, although in that department, I feel like some of the character models didn't really upscale all that well. Like Axel Steel kind of has like a weird face going on and stuff. But anyway, the biggest issue I have with this Xbox port is the tempo lines. For some reason, they made them really hard to see, especially like the measure lines. Those are so distinct on PS2, and it makes stuff way better to time in that regard. But yeah, for some reason in this version, even though, like, it doesn't even make sense because the fretboard and the notes are so much, and the strike line pops so much more due to the increased texture fidelity, they made the tempo lines really hard to see for, I don't know, it sucks. I don't like it. But yeah, aside from that, even, like, the songs that I thought were gonna be worse on here, like Miserloo and Six and all the strumming songs. I'm pretty sure Xbox strumming doesn't exist. It's just a myth, like the Loch Ness Monster or North Dakota. But yeah, I really haven't felt like any real evidence of it, so... Yes! I don't care. Ticks are shit. I got it. Fuck yes, dude. Felt like that whammy was there. I felt like the front end was good. Barely, dude. I probably dropped so many on that final blue-orange, but when the squeeze is that hard, it's just inevitable. I'm just glad that I didn't drop exactly 8 more. Not having max glitch ticks there could have come back to bite me. Let's fucking go, dude. Obviously, I wish I went for this path from the get-go. Unfortunately, this is just one of those slow hero paths that gets really jumbled up because of what's theoretically possible. I have a theory that this altered bigger squeeze path that I'm using here is either sandwiched between the bigger squeeze and nearly ideal, or the nearly ideal and upper bound. I don't know exactly where this path lands in terms of ticks compared to the nearly ideal. I feel like it's a little worse, but you get a bunch of extra ticks from getting the full green in, so it's just kind of hard to tell, but I do think it gives a little bit less. But yeah, as a result, this path ends up not being, used by Slow Hero, which is a real bummer because as hard as that last act is, this is only the second time I've hit it out of many attempts, it's still way easier than the nearly ideal path. And the main reason for that is I'm pretty sure this last act is still a fair bit easier than the nearly ideal solo act, just because of the fact that A, the whammies are way more straightforward. In the nearly ideal path, they're very similar to like the light that blinds solo phrase, just tangled up in a bunch of hopos and everything. But also the front end is so much easier on this path. So obviously I don't have the frame data for this. This is again where not being able to TAS stuff in this version really sucks and just kills a lot of, potential and understanding of where these songs can really go. But I have a feeling that the frame data is very similar between this last act and the nearly ideal solo. It's just, again, these whammies are way easier to execute, despite how obnoxiously small that initial greens hit window is, and the front end is way easier. The back end is harder, to be fair. So yeah, the big reasons I spent so much time on the nearly ideal path is I didn't even bother to look at the bigger squeeze because the score was such that it just from a glance looked like it was the nearly ideal path minus the solo squeeze but plus ticks, which I need to get better about checking the lower paths because I made what I would consider a similar kind of mistake on the Fall of Pangea 6th act. So yeah, I just should have looked at that beforehand. But the other big reason is that there are like no recordings of this song. Jild is the only one who recorded his run, and thank you for that. But to be fair, Moose also recorded his run, which was using this path minus the adjusted last act. And that was kind of where, even seeing that helped a lot in analyzing and thinking about whether this last act would be possible. But it wasn't his PB and therefore wasn't linked on Score Hero, so I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, even in Jild's comments of his first place run, somebody asked if this was like if he used an adjusted path on the nearly ideal, and he's just like, I don't know, nobody recorded their runs. But anyway, back to that nearly ideal path. The bigger reason why this path is way better than the nearly ideal for fishing, just fishing for 284 specifically, is because not only do you have the solo act, which is probably, again, harder than this last act, but you also have to hit the really hard last act as well. Now, you might not have to sacrifice ticks quite as much on the back end, and you have more of them to throw away, but still, hitting those 2 acts in the same run would be really, really fucking hard. I mean, just hitting the solo act would be really hard, but pairing it with that last act. And I went over this in the first tick record that I got, saying that I basically just shelved the whole solo act double because trying to hit those 2 in the same run was just I did not feel like going for that at all. But yeah, this run has a completely free third act, basically. So yeah, I think this path is a lot better. It's not all sunshine and rainbows on this path, though. Outside of the second act, there's really nothing going on in this entire song until the very end, and that can just be a real slog. And the second act at that is just kind of a huge crapshoot. I don't even remember what this second was. My PB for... I'm sure I showed this in the pre-roll, but my PB for the second act, and what I almost feel like is optimal with how many runs I've done around that tick range, is 08. And I've had 08 runs make it to this last act, and felt really shitty to miss out on those. But, you know, again, ticks on the last act back end are kind of a shit show in and of themselves, so it's hard to even compare and care in that regard. So yeah, kind of sucks that I spent so much time trying to get a good score on the nearly ideal, but it did at least give me some better understanding of the second act and some experience on the last act whammy. So it wasn't a complete waste or anything. But yeah, I got 284 with my first run, getting all the squeezes, so can't really complain. Again, ticks aren't good, it's definitely beatable, but I'll definitely take this, no complaints.